What's up, guys? Welcome to the Chess Giant. This is Solomon Riddell, and today we post our first ever endgame video. This video will cover basic endgames like king and two rooks versus king and queen versus king, and lastly, a king and rook versus king. If you guys are new to chess, I highly recommend staying until the end so that you can learn the basic concepts, patterns, and ideas. And if you're not new, this video probably won't be much help to you. But we do offer content on this channel for all levels and areas as we go over games, give top 5 rankings, tactics, openings, middle game ideas, pawn structure, eventually chess movie reviews, basically anything chess. So without further ado, let's go over the first basic endgame, which is two rooks and king versus king. And guys, basically in these endgames, we are trying to trap the opponent's king in a certain area and work to make that area smaller and smaller so that the king is brought to the edge or corner of the board where we can deliver checkmate. So here in this position, as we can tell, white is up two rooks, and the best move here for white is rook h4 check. Here we have the idea of a rook roll, and it's pretty basic. Here we check the king, and this king can't come down because of the rook. So here the king can only go up. And after king c5, we now use this rook to check the king with rook g5 check. And again, notice how the king cannot move down because of this rook on h4. And we basically just keep doing this all the way up the board, right? Notice how in this position, I don't move this rook because now this king could come back, right? I use the G rook, forcing the king to go up. And here after king f8, we have to be a little careful because if rook h8 check, black would just take the rook, right? So here we can just play a move like rook h7, and now after king e8, play rook h8 checkmate, and the game's over. The second basic endgame we will go over is king and queen versus king. And this one is a little bit harder. Here in this position, we have to pretend that the king can move like a knight. So let's just imagine for a second that this king was a knight. Where could the king go? The king could go to d7, e6, e4, d3, b3, a4, a6, and b7. Now, any of these squares work for the queen. And here in this position, white actually has 4 options, playing queen e6, queen d7, queen d3, and queen b3. And here I chose queen d3. So by playing queen d3, we see that this king on c5 is trapped in a box, right? As we know in chess, a king cannot move to an attacked square. So even if we gave this king 25 million moves in a row, this king could not get out of the box that we just made, right? And basically what we are trying to do is make that square smaller. So after king c6, again, we pretend that this king can move like a knight, and we move our queen to that square. Notice how now the box has got just a little bit smaller. We have king b5. Now we play queen c3. We just keep making the box smaller. And after queen c4, we have a move like king b7. Now queen c5. Notice how small this box is getting now, where this king really doesn't have much space to operate. We have king a6, queen b4, king a7, queen b5. And here after king a8 is where white has to be careful. I've seen a lot of beginners play a move like queen to b6. And now the area is too small, and it's actually a stalemate. The area is so small that it is only one square, and now the king can't move at all. We have stalemate, and we have a draw, right? And we don't want to draw here. We want to win. So here what we do is we bring this king on d1 all the way in to c6 or c7, play queen b7, and call it a game over. So it starts with king c2. And again, notice how black can't really do much, but just kind of move the king back and forth to a7 and a8. We keep moving the king in, and eventually we're able to play queen b7 checkmate. This is game over because the black king can't take the queen because this king protects it. And our last endgame is king and rook versus king. Now, it's basically the same idea, except now the rook needs assistance from the king. Remember how with the queen, we could just use the queen alone to trap the king into two squares, bring the king in, game over? Well, now the rook needs assistance the whole way through, right? I mean, if we play rook d4 right now, well, then the black king could just take the rook. So we have to move the white king in to protect the rook first. So here we see king e2, king d5, king e3, just bringing the king in, king c5, and now rook d4. Notice the box that we just trapped this king in. Here we see king b5. And in a king and rook versus king endgame, whenever we can improve the position of the king, we do it. So now we play king d3, and after king c5, we play king c3. Now we have king c6, and again here we can improve the position of this king. So we play king c4, king b6, king d5, just keep taking up space with that king. We have king c7, king c5. Notice how we are trapping this king into a tighter and tighter area. We have king b7, and now rook d6. Notice how small this box is now, and we're going to keep making it smaller with king c7, king d5. This is just a waiting move, waiting for the king to move back to c8, b8, or b7. After king b7, we can play rook c6, and now the king is trapped in a 4 square box. We have king b8, and again, whenever we can improve the position of the king, we do it. So here we have king c5, king b7, king b5, king a7, rook b6, king a8, and now we have the king trapped in 2 squares. And again, we want to improve the position of this king with king c6. And after king a7, here white has a simple mate in 2 with king c7. And after king a8, rook a6 is checkmate. I would like to mention that just like the queen endgame, we have to be careful that we're not trapping the king into too small of a box. Here white could play rook b7, and yes, this box is very small, but this box is so small that the king can't move. We have stalemate, and we have a draw. And again, we don't want to draw in this position, right? So again, we see rook a6, checkmate, and the game's over. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video and learned something from it. Let me know what you guys thought down in the comment section, and I'm wishing you guys an amazing day. Thanks for watching today's video. If you'd like to watch another one, you can click or tap up here. And I've got a lot more high quality chess content on the way. So if you'd like to subscribe, you can click or tap down here. I really appreciate your support.